So welcome to our last session of the day. We do have another session going on right now that I'll talk about, but hopefully after telling you that, you're going to stay here with us. So we're going to look at a session on cooking up activities with solar power on the active panel. Now I've written an objective here that we're going to be learning about alternative ways of producing fuels and cooking foods. And we're going to take what that looks like from a STEM perspective. So my name's Sean Taylor. I'm an education consultant from Promethean, based out of Denver, Colorado. I'm really happy to be here sharing this content with you today. So let's jump right into it. Now, please do ask questions in the chat. I'm going to pause periodically, just allow you to have some time, that we can reflect on where we're at. If anyone's got any ideas or any feedback, please feel free to just ask it in the chat and we will intervene throughout this session. So I can say coming up today, because we moved this session, we've also got our hole-in-one going on right now, and this is going to be our last session to wrap up the day. So thank you very much for everyone that's been with us throughout the whole time. It's really important as well just to remember that all of our sessions are going to be on demand as well. So if you did miss this or you want to go back and watch it anytime, they're also going to be available on demand through the link that's sent to you there also. So I want to thank you just for a start for innovating with Promethean. I hope today's given you a lot of ideas of the new and exciting things that you can do with one of these active panels, but also just in education. So we want to continue to innovate with Promethean. We do have a Twitter contest going on right now, whereby you can win one of these. Okay, these are virtualities where someone would wear the t-shirt, then you download the app, and when you point the app at this t-shirt, it's actually going to give you lots of different views of the body. So if you follow us on Twitter @LearnPromethean, you can tag us using that same handle of @LearnPromethean. And then also, I just want to take you through some of the other things that we have going on. So make sure you tweet about this session, say what you think about it, say something that you've learned maybe as well. You can also visit our Learn Promethean site where there's really short clips and videos, also printable resources that you're going to be able to use within your lessons, and also just so that people can know how to use these panels correctly. Also, just released today, we've got our STEM activities and in our academy.prometheanworld.com. So it's free to enroll in interactive online courses. And as I said, we've just released a STEM one as well. So if you wanted to jump into that and take a look what that was like, make sure you register, make sure you log into it and see how that course works. Whilst we're here, it's really great to mention that we are partnered with NASA Eclipse as well and NASA Spotlight. So it's a great way that you can get online, search for videos and search for content that's also related to STEM that you're going to be able to use in your STEM lessons or on your Promethean panel. So the key issue, and I wanted to do this as a lesson for you and show you how I can just create a lesson on the fly as we're going through without actually having any other device connected to this. So the big idea, which I think what STEM is all about, producing a big idea for these students to think about and then giving them that open field that they can research and also use as they go through in solving a key world issue. So we know that fossil fuels are running out and they are going to run out within the next 50 years. So I think it's really key just to say to students that it's everywhere. And we would probably learn about an energy topic before doing this. And energy is all around us, but ultimately it's being wasted in a lot of ways. And so what we're going to try and do with this is how can we turn that either unused energy or useless energy that's there and turn it into something useful. So back in the day, when I was a child, it makes me sound old, that does, doesn't it? I'm really old back in the day. I didn't have anything plugged in next to my bed. I had like maybe an alarm clock or one of those wind-up ones that we had. But now at night, I charge 2 phones. I charge my laptop. I'm charging my watch. And we're using a lot more energy. And what this diagram down here actually shows is how our energy consumption has changed from the 1970s all the way through to where we are today. And we can see this upward trend. So I think it's really key to set the context for students first of all. But also before learning this, we would have learned about other topics like conduction, convection, radiation, renewable and non-renewable fuels as well. And what it does then, it sets the scene for them to really get to grips with that big world problem that we're giving them. I put in here some of the example jobs in industries. This is going to get students excited as well, because everyone wants to be an NFL player, a hockey player when they're at school, but ultimately it gives them a bit more perspective of their potential earnings within this field. And when I search for it, what is the mean salary of a sort of like fossil fuel engineer or a solar engineer, we were looking between the 80,000 to 100,000 range on this. And then, just to give them, again, some ideas that they could start searching, I found some of the best paid jobs, but also the ones that are most up and coming in that industry. We say, and there's lots of adverts around for students, that actually we're teaching students things for jobs that we don't even know exist right now. So here's just some examples for them. So we had like petrochemical engineering, PV installers and researchers, electric car developers, that's a really, really big key market. Also biofuel engineers, research into geothermal energy, but also hydroelectric as well. So we've set this sort of like backseam to them, and they know all of the terms that we've got coming up with this. So what I'm going to do is show you how Promethean allows activities to flow. So we have this open source application from our unified menu. And what this does is it overlays on any resource that is connected to this panel, whether it be hardwired, whether we're going to screen share to this. And what it allows you then is just to toggle between your recent applications from either side, but also the bottom of the screen. So we've thought about that reachability in using this panel and not having to go back to the same place all of the time. I've also put up here a question. Ultimately, we want students to take control of the panel. And it's a question, if you did want to respond to it in the chat, please do. But who could be using this panel more? Should it be the teacher? Should it be the students? What balance do you think we should get with this? And if you want to put your views in the chat, we can just stop and pause with that as a second there. It gives us this very intuitive experience. When I'm using this, it's like using my phone. I can go to my recent apps and I can toggle between the things that I'm using there. We've also got this great integrated locker, whereby it syncs all of the apps that we've got there. One of my favorite science apps that I've used a lot is the PhET simulations out of Boulder, Colorado, to really engage students, but also to model things that we can't see. In STEM, there's lots of concepts around us that we just can't see. And then when you put it as a visual on the screen, and we can increase the temperature, change the color of the surface in this context of what we're learning here. It's a really, really, really great way to do that. Now, we spoke about this engagement to empowerment, and one of our key things of where we're moving with this. When I went to school, we were here, this big heavy bag of books, being able to like drag it around. But then also we're moving to this point where students are bringing devices to school. So just to recap, we've set the scene, we've got our solar topic, they know the jobs, they're excited. We've also done a bit of back learning to this as well. So we're actually going to get into one of the features on the Promethean panel that I want to show you. So this would be like an introduction to the lesson. This would be my do now for students. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up our screen share app. I've split students into groups of 3 or 4, and I'm going to show you how I did that in a second. But what I'm going to do is just load up my screen share app. And I'm just going to get 2 of the students that I've got in the room with me today to connect to this panel. And then as soon as they're connected, I can toggle back. I can show them the questions that I want them to answer. They can do that activity. Then when I go back to this screen share app, I can allow them into the classroom to share their screens. So I had all of these questions up there. And what they've done is they've gone through, and we can see that here, Anna's gone through and searched, how does light travel? And she's done some really great videos on that she would be able to share and use. Then when I come over to Pete's screen here, I'm going to double tap it, I'm going to get it full screen there. He's found what happens when infrared radiation hits shiny objects. So it sets this real big backseam to this and allows students to really think about what we're learning. So we can use our screen share, really, really nice and simple. And as you can see on this, even on Pete's laptop over there, I can control his laptop from the front here, manipulate, move it. I can add new tabs. So I don't need to be tethered to this space anymore as a teacher. I can allow the students in to move and manipulate these objects. So they've done all their research. Then what I'm going to do, to put students in groups as a preempt to this, I'm just going to toggle to my whiteboard. I'm going to set myself up a new page. This is from my last session. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to have Group number 1. So I'm going to start putting students into groups, and I'm going to spin it. You can have up to 44 entries on this spinner, and you can have lots of different lists with this. So Drew's being picked first of all. So in group 1, we have Drew. Fantastic. I could then keep spinning with this, and it's going to assign students to groups. Ultimately with this, it's going to, as students, they're going to like you more because it was the wheel that picked them and not you that was picking them and putting them into different groups. So I've assigned my groups. We can spin this both ways. I'm just going to get one more person in there. We've got Emily. And then we know in group 2, we've got Pete and we've got Anna. So they should be the ones that are coming up and spinning this. Once they've spun it, that's their assigned group or the person's assigned group that we've got with this. Now, with STEM, they're always going to need an objective and they're always going to need an aim with this. So I'm just going to go into my recent apps and actually pull up the teacher sheet for this lesson on solar cooking. As you can see, I can keep my spinner up there. I can keep it where I am, and I can keep carrying on with my lesson. Now, the next feature I want to show is our capture and cropping feature. So to get this objective live into that lesson, into that whiteboard, I'm simply going to swipe up from my unified menu. I'm going to tap capture, and then using these little marquee handles here, I'm just going to crop this image so that I can actually get it directly into that infinite canvas whiteboard that we've got. I've cropped it. That's what it's going to look like now. And then I'm going to click on Open in Whiteboard. Now, while I've got this going on, students always struggled for me to have be able to spell keywords, link them, and use them together. So what I've done is I've made for my spinner now that we've got all of our groups assigned, I've made myself a solar cooker word wheel. So they can see all of the keywords that we're going to be using and what we're going to be teaching with there. We've got our objective in here right now. They've then got to set the scene. So students will gain an understanding of how different materials respond to solar energy and will use engineering design principles to plan, construct, test, and modify a solar cooker. So we have all of this big picture. I'm just going to switch back to my presentation super quick. So we've done our screen share. You can see how that works. We've had a look at our spinner, and there's lots of other ideas that you can use with this as well, like brain breaks, numbers, alphabet, having things like roles and responsibilities in the classroom. But I think keywords and names are my two favorite ones that I would use within this. We've had a quick look at our instant whiteboard. We're in there right now. We've got our pen touch differentiation, whereby when I'm in there and I'm writing, if I was to write group 3 here, I can then touch this and I can interact with all of these different objects that are around the board. They become different parts of this. Remember, we've got our palm arrays as well, that any point of view want to erase. And we've also got our fine arrays that we can just erase from the end of the pencil there. So, the Promethean timer, it's always great to give students a time base as we're doing activities. So we are actually going to start off our first activity with this. So I'm going to simply just swipe up. I'm going to go back to my recent apps and I'm going to go back to here. Now, I think with this, it's really, really key in STEM. People think that you have to do just an all-out STEM lesson. We don't even need to call it STEM. This would just be part of my normal culture that I have within my classroom. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set them a scene, set them a task, the materials needed for student teams. And I'm simply going to capture this again by using my handles, pull this in, and then simply open this in my whiteboard. So you can see this lesson developing as we're going through. We've got our keywords, we've got our objective. Now what I'm going to do with students is I'm just going to say to them, here's all the materials. I'm not even going to show them a solar cooker at this point. I'm just going to give them this list of materials. I'm then going to give them a time using my timer that I was just talking about here. Simply go into my locker, pull up my timer, and you can see that actually we've got 3 of the Promethean apps going right now, made by another one of the capture and cropping. So I'm going to set them their 5-minute timer so that they can go and collect their materials. Now it's at this point that they're going to split themselves into group, get all the things that they need. Whilst we're here as well, we've got lots of measuring techniques, so they have to measure all of these things out as well. Again, just reinforcing that math part of this. So now that we've got our scene completely set, we've seen how to use some of the Promethean features that we've got up there. including our annotation tool and our capture and crop that I've just been through. Does anyone have any questions? Have we got any questions in the chat so far, Pete?
Good to go.
Okay, we're good to go. Perfect. Fantastic. So the students have collected all of their materials. Now, the whole idea of this that we've created here, I'm just going to move my spinner down, is that STEM-related projects require a problem. Now, this is their problem. They have to build this solar cooker. Now, on the start of this, they've got all their materials in front of them. I could just let them go and have at this. But what I actually want to do is I want to show you a way that we can incorporate the Android system and the whiteboard that we have on here. So I'm going to go into Chromium here. And what I've searched is a parabolic cooker. Now, this is going to start to give them the idea of how their pizza box cooker is going to work. Now, from that start point activity, how does light travel? What happens with shiny objects? What happens with dark matte objects? They're going to be able to start thinking about their ideas and bringing these together. Now, I want to show you this, how I can get this directly into my whiteboard canvas. I could annotate on this if I wanted to, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to simply press and hold this image and click Share Image. What this is going to do then, with the internal system that we have in here, I can simply import this image in our HD quality that we have there directly into this. So now what it's going to do is I can have an activity up, getting them to think about how does light travel? What is conduction? Why is it shining? And ultimately, why are we trying to do this? So they have an idea of what a parabolic cooker looks like. Then simply, we need them then to, after they've made this, I'm going to let them loose probably for about 30 to 45 minutes to try and actually make this solar cooker. From this idea, I'm still not going to show them how to do it. But what I could do, if I had a group of students that weren't, progressing with this as much as possible, what I could actually do then is I could just direct them to a YouTube video, just a small group of students, maybe around the front or maybe in their groups, that they could research this of how to turn a pizza box into that solar oven. We know that students progress at different rates and we want it to be open, but actually some students might need a bit more support. So I could use my annotate feature and say, do you know what? This is a great video that if you are stuck with this, go and take a look at it. But ultimately, we want it to be as open as possible. I'm just going to capture that and bring that into my lesson also to show them where they can look for extra resources as well using that feature. So on our infinite canvas, we're still moving along well with this. We've got all of their ideas up here right now. So they've had their time. And I could use the timer for that as well. They've made their pizza box solar oven. And now what we want to do is we want to start going to see if we can test it. So part of the list that we had there, we're going to be given 2 chocolate bars. Here's where we can start bringing in variables and things like that from science. Why are we having 2 chocolate bars? So they've made it. We're then going to go and test it. So I asked them to design a table to collect their data. They know that one's going to be a control, one's going to be our test method as well. And we can then question and think how we're going to do this. But again, also pre-connected to this, if I wanted to move just that little bit quicker, I could go back to my original resource for this. Simply scroll down, have a look at all the teacher things that I've got here. I haven't got to actually create a new table on this at all. There's all of the pictures to support us that we need. But within this, I can just scroll through and then I can find just a simple table. Still scrolling. I can find a simple table that could give them that frame for how they're going to use this. But what I've done with this, so it is there, but what I've done with this also is I took a capture of this earlier and I can just simply import this from my gallery directly into my whiteboard as well. So not only can I find it, so I've got an example table that someone could use here as well. Students then obviously go outside, they do their observations, they have all their sketches of this great thing that they've made, thinking about that concept of harnessing that solar energy into this. Think back to what we've been through so far, of the learning that's taken place that's completely open. Then it's after this point that I would get them back into the classroom. We've got our observations. We could screen share a nice little simple presentation again of what went well and an even better if as well. But then if you notice from our instructions here as well, we've also got more materials. So I could even set this as a challenge in terms of cost as well. If they were to buy these materials, you know, for an unknown value or a value that I was set at, and they could only spend X amount on this, it would give them that idea of budgeting as well there. So we've made this, we've got our observations. Now we go back to the drawing board again. They make themselves that second solar pizza oven, and then we can test it again after this point. So going back to my presentation, ultimately in terms of STEM and this whole solar cooker idea, the best lessons that I've had is when it's something that's personal to them. So we can tap into something that they're excited about, they're passionate and they want to research, they're going to go a lot further because you have that invested interest. Ultimately, it takes time. It takes time to build these skills, and that's what I'm saying. It's not just a STEM lesson. We can actually make something like I've just created here today, something of the culture of what we always do. Students need parameters as well. If we have no guidelines and we just say solve that problem, we know that there's going to be times where we need to stop and guide them through this. Are there any other questions there?
No questions.
Okay, perfect. We're running well. So looking at how our lesson looks, and I think this is important as well, just to step back from this for a second. So when I go back into that whiteboard with a simple switch, I have everything that I need for this lesson on this infinite canvas. I can pinch and zoom to scale it out. But ultimately, what I'm trying to say here is that we can have students working at different rates as we're going through this anytime. And if students hadn't quite finished drawing their table or measuring out their things, I can toggle around this board really nice and simple. Think if I just had a slide-by-slide presentation now. Some students might not have finished this yet, but I'm waiting even on those students to finish and actually stopping other students progressing and extending them even further. Alrighty. So again, I hope you've enjoyed that. It's just a simple way to make such an open-ended lesson in terms of a pizza solar cooker. Make sure you check out our online courses at the Promethean Academy, and just simply go to academy.prometheanworld.com/ and you'll even be able to access the STEM materials from today as well. There's a whole STEM course that's being created for you there. We've also got our free professional development. If you want to dive a bit deeper into Promethean on the Active Panel, Classflow or Active Inspire, jump on in there. There's short 1 to 2 minute videos that are going to guide you through every single feature on our products there and help to support you with this. Has anyone tweeted yet? That's my one question. I want to see if anyone comes up. So make sure you tweet with the @LearnPromethean. I thank you for joining us today. It's been a real pleasure being part of this event.